Antisocial behavior. Components of antisocial behavior. Antisocial behavior can be ascribed to the nature of aggression, discrimination, and prejudice. These components has been issued of central interest to social psychologists. Howard and Hollander, 1997, pointed out that antisocial behavior reflects system of power that prevail in a given society. Understanding of social psychological concepts, theories, and principles of these components is very important to examine oneself and others, and the general tendencies in the thought, feeling, and action of an individual with other person or group is the focal point of this chapter. Meaning and nature of aggression. Weber 1995 defined aggression as behavior intending harm or negative consequences to others. The behavior that intends to harm or injure either physical or verbal form with someone. The common denominator in this definition is intention. Intending but failing to do harm is aggressive, and however, unintentionally causing harm is not aggression. In short, aggression is an intentional action aimed at doing harm or causing pain. Whether it succeeds in its goal or not, it is still aggression. The action can be physical or verbal. For example, an angry stranger throws a stone onto the face of the bystander. It's an aggressive act because of the stranger's intention. Conversely, a drunk driver unintentionally hits the bystander while attempting to cross the street. It is not an act of aggression despite damage has been done. Take note, the destruction of things is not considered to be an aggressive act unless the act is direct to a person or intentional. Furthermore, aggressive act is distinguished from assertive behavior that is purposeful and goal-directed and do not involve intended harm. This involves standing up for your personal rights and expressing your thoughts, feelings, and beliefs directly, honestly, and openly in ways that are respectful of the rights of others. For example, if they stand up for their rights, write letters to others complaining about real or imagined injustices, work extra hard, display a great deal of ambition, or are real go-getters. Here are more definition of aggression. Aggression is a behavior, it's not an attitude, emotion, or motive. Anger and thoughts might play a role. Aggression is involved harm or injury. It involves either physical or psychological harm. Aggression is directed toward a living organism. It means directing the harm towards an animal or a man. Aggression involves intent. When aggression is directed toward living organism, there is an intent or purposeful act. Aggression can be described as either instrumental or hostile. Instrumental aggression is marked by behaviors that are intended to achieve a larger goal. For example, a basketball player will usually do whatever it takes to thwart his opponent and tackle the ball. This includes intentionally inflicting pain on his opponent if doing so is useful in helping him get the ball out. Hostile or effective aggression is aggression that intends harm or injury as its primary goal. For example, if the basketball player believes his opponent has been playing dirty, he might become angry and go out of his way to hurt his opponent, even if doing so does not increase his opportunity to tackle the ball.
In sexual theory, this refers to natural urge to respond. This may also relate to developing anger among others. This may necessarily be as a result of acting for survival for one's intention. All this is comprised in the personality of a certain person. Environmental theory. These may be due to environmental and external factors, also understood as where there is another experience before an assault and aggression could happen. Social learning theory. It relates to behavioralism. The cause of an aggression could be what was associated with a given stimulus. It is a behavior that obtained knowledge through imitation. In these circumstances, we also learn and come to understand why a certain event occurs. Psychosocial theory. This could be within the individual psychological processes and or social phenomena. On the situation of social phenomena, it depends on what is considered to be aggression through the social norms, while psychological processes may refer to the study and facts of aggression.
Role of cognition and aggression.
According to Leonard Berkowitz's cognitive neo-association analysis, unpleasant events have a negative impact, which then triggers association with anger and terror. Negative consequences trigger a variety of thoughts, memories, and other behaviors that are related to two tendencies: fight or flight. People analyze their current situation, consider their sentiments, assign causal attributions for why they are feeling this way, and weigh the consequences of action on their feelings. Two major influences on cognition: 1. Situational cues. 2. Cognitive mediators. Situational cues. Situational cues are environmental cues that alert a person to the possibility of an action or event. It could be also a hint that a person needs to act in a certain way. Loss of loved one is a situational cues example, while the cognitive mediators are between the present of a stimulus and the commencement of an associate response. Cognitive mediators are mental processes or activities. Such processes can begin soon after a stimulus, or they can take days or weeks to occur. Example of this is an agitated individual may choose to live rather than fight if the cost of fighting appears to be too great. Because cognitive mediator has an impact on more deliberate, higher order cognition thinking when dealing with more complex information on a single circumstances. Weapons effect. Individual who haven't seen a weapon before will act more aggressively when provoked than those who have not. The weapons effect is a continuous notion in social psychology that has been described and contested. It refers to mere presence of a weapon or a picture of a weapon causing humans to become more violent, especially if they are already armed. The tendency of weapons to increase the likelihood of aggression by their mere presence. As Berkowitz explained, the finger pulls the trigger may also be pulling the finger. The large majority of murder are committed with guns. In fact, National Rifle Association or NRA respond that guns should not be blamed because people pull the trigger. Guns are the instrument, not the cause. However, the presence of a weapon acts as a situational cue that automatically triggers aggressive thoughts and feelings, thereby increasing the likelihood of aggression. Berkowitz stressed that any object or external characteristic that is associated with successful aggression or the negative effect of pain or unpleasantness can serve as an aggression-enhancing situational cue. Information that reflects favorably and information that reflects badly on the subject individual are both considered mitigating information. Example of mitigating information is when a person is the victim of an abusive or threatening circumstance, what does it mean that they should not be held totally responsible for the hostile behavior of others? It means that information about a person's situation that suggests he or she should not be held solely responsible for his or her conduct.
This topic is about prejudice and discrimination differentiated, and the objective of this topic is to contrast the prejudice and discrimination. Mears 2005 made clear the distinction between prejudice and discrimination. Former means a negative prejudgment of a group or an unjustifiable negative attitude toward a group and its individual members. So let's contrast the word prejudice and discrimination. Prejudice is a thing of being against to someone by their differences, race or culture, religion, also different gender. Prejudice is also a bias through prejudgment and preconceived opinion to others. Then the discrimination is an unfair treatment to someone being as distinguished differences like based on their sex, gender, age, or other characteristic. Also, prejudice is a negative attitude and discrimination is negative behavior. So, if you say attitude, it's referring to how we think or feel to someone's or others, and behavior it implies on how we act toward to other persons or other group. Some prejudices are racism, prejudice against people on the basis on race, sexism, prejudice against people on the basis of sex, ageism, prejudice on the basis of age, and the other like prejudice against homosexuals, those from the other cultures and religions, the poor, the less intelligent, and the mentally ill or physical handicapped. So prejudices are anchored in beliefs about various realities and facts and are aptly called stereotypes. Stereotypes are beliefs about the person attributes shared by person or people in a particular group or social category. Taylor, Pepler, and Sears, 1997. So stereotype, it is a preconceptions that individual holds ev- about every individual of a specific category and expectation of beliefs of being unfair about the thing that all people in a group share the same characteristic. So Mears pointed out frustration and aggression or scapegoat theory and the feeling superior to others or social identity theory as motivation sources of prejudice. Scapegoat theory explained the pain and frustration evoke hostility. So scapegoat theory, a person who is blamed for wrongdoings or mistakes or others, usually for social reasons. Next is social identity theory means the we aspect or self concept, the part of our answer to who am I that comes from our group. Social identity theory is based on we categorize, we identify, and we compare. So Australian social psychologists propose social identity theory based on the following. We categorize, we identify, we compare. So next is the Lord 1997 presented a model as to when the process of the group antagonism such as stereotyping, prejudice, and discrimination occur and or when this group antagonism is not occurring as described below. Steps. First stage is spontaneous. There are categorization, bias assumption, based emotion, based treatment. So here the descriptions. And next is deliberative stage. There are gathering more information, recategorize, and avoid guilt. Next is the thought processes, illusionary correlation, ignoring correlation, implicit stereotyping, then personal relevance, the social identity, symbolic values, ambivalence, implication. So, the last is social function, social group, media bias, social roles. So finally, Lord 1997 suggests way to reduce stereotyping, prejudice, and discrimination in terms of contact hypothesis and recategorization. So this one was for the next presenter.
Ways to reduce stereotyping, prejudice, and discrimination in terms of contact hypothesis and recategorization. The contact hypothesis. Floyd Allport originally exhorts that contact hypothesis under certain conditions, contact with members of negatively stereotyped minority group will ameliorate negative attitudes both toward the specific members with whom the contact occurred and toward group members as a whole. The contact hypothesis is a theory in psychology which suggests the prejudice and conflict between groups can be reduced if the members of the groups interact with each other. The three conditions are mutual goals, equal status, acquaintance potential. Mutual goals. Contact between members of rival groups has no beneficial effect when people do not pursue mutual goals. But the contact does reduce stereotyping, prejudice, and discrimination when it involves active cooperation toward a mutual goal. Both groups must work on a task or problem and share common goals, a goal that can only be attained if the member of two or more groups work together by pooling their efforts and resources. Equal status. It demonstrates that intergroup contact reduces stereotyping,
prejudice and discrimination because the participants have equal status during interaction. Both groups must engage equally in relationship. For example, members should not have an employer and employee or instructor and student relationship. Acquaintance potential. Intergroup contact works best in reducing intergroup hostility when members get to know each other as individuals rather than merely as representative of their groups. Both groups must work together for their common goals without competition. Recategorization is to create a subordinate category that encompasses both in-group and out-group in a single social group. It takes one of two forms. These are combination and subtypes and individual uniqueness. Combination, a separate group may combine into one larger group. For example, black and white who married each other and had children through several generations. There would be no basis of stereotyping, prejudice, and discrimination based on skin color. Subtypes and individual uniqueness. Creating one social category with which everyone belongs is to break existing categories into smaller and smaller subtypes.